friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 2 of my 2018 Valentine card series. Today I'm going to be using this adorable stamp set from Avery, Elle called Utterly Fantastic, and I will also be using the My Favorite Things Hearts and Stripes 6x6 paper pad. I've stamped out my images on some Copic friendly cardstock with Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers today. I actually have stamped out 4 of these otters, 2 of each one. I'm just going to be showing 2 of them on screen today because I'm coloring them exactly the same, but I will actually be making 4 cards. So for the otter on the right, I'm using E40, E43, E44, and E47. And I'm coloring darkest to lightest, so I'm starting with that E47 and just laying it down sparingly where I want my darkest shadows to go. Then I'll come in with my E44 and begin to blend that out, and I will also add a little bit more shading in the areas that I didn't want to be quite as dark. So like areas where his little arms, his paws are raised up, and alongside the side of his head and under his tail, between his legs, those areas I wanted to be extra dark because there would be more shadow cast there. But the rest of his body I just want to look nice and rounded in appearance, so he looks more three-dimensional. So we'll be adding shading there also. Now I'm going in with the E43 and beginning to blend that out towards the center so that I have the nice highlighted area left. And I will be filling that part in with the E40. Now there is quite a bit of difference between the E40 and the E43. There is also an E41 and an E42. I would like to pick up one of those, but I don't have either of them right now. So what I'm going to do to make up for that is do a little bit of tip to tip. So I'm grabbing a little bit of the E43 with the tip of my E40 and just using that to blend in the transition and make it nice and smooth. And I will also use the E40 and E43 to add a little bit of shading to his belly. I wanted to color the other otter just a little bit different, so I decided to do some warm grays. So I'm using W00, W1, W3, and W5. And again, I'm starting with that W5, and I'm going to lay in all my dark areas, especially down where the water is going to be casting a shadow at the edge of his body. And then I'll blend out with the W3, just kind of softening that line, making sure to make a nice transition so everything is nice and smooth and he looks really nice and fuzzy like an otter does. And then I'll fill in a little bit more with the W1. That other arm that's on the other side of his body is only going to get the W1 because it's further away, so it would be in more shadow. And then this arm that's a little bit closer, and then his center of his face is going to get the W00, so it's nice and bright. I used the R20 to give them some rosy cheeks and also to add that little pop of pink in there since this is a Valentine card. And I got a little bit too carried away on the gray otter, so I just softened that with the W00. And the brown otter didn't need any softening because he was already dark enough that it didn't look too bright. For the gray otter's nose, I'm going back to the W7 and then the W5. And I left that until later because I used a lot of that light color in the center right over his face, and I didn't want the paper to be oversaturated and for the darker color to bleed outside the lines. And then I used E44 and E47 for the nose of the brown otter. And I'd forgotten to color in the gray otter's belly, so I just went back with W1 and W00. I'm using BV02 and BV04 to color in the little seashell and also the pair of fish. And that is going to match our pattern paper perfectly. So I'm just using the BV04 to add a little bit of definition and then filling in with the BV02. I wanted to add some little hot pink hearts, so I'm using RV14 and RV17, and I'm just coloring up from the bottom. So I use the RV17 first, and then I'm blending out with the RV14. I was going to try to skip the RV13 because that marker tends to leak on me. I've left off the caps, I've tried everything and it still leaks, but they were still just a little bit too dark, so it really needed that bit of lightness. So I just colored in really quickly and I made it. So yay! For the last bit of coloring, I'm using BG45 and BG49, just using that BG49 real close to his body and then blending out towards the edge with the BG45. And there you can see all 4 otters colored and trimmed out. And now I'm going to work on my background. I've got 4 pieces of Bristol Smooth cardstock trimmed down to 3 3/4 inches wide by 5.5 tall. And I'm going to take some Peacock Feathers Distress ink and blend a circle into the top center. The reason I like to use the Bristol for this is because you get such a smooth blend with the Distress inks, and I really wanted this to fade off and kind of be hazy around the edges, and this is perfect for that. The one disadvantage is it does take you a little bit to build up your color on the Bristol, but to me it's worth it to have that smooth blend. So I'm putting my card fronts into my Misty stamping tool, and I'm going to stamp my sentiments using Lawn Fawn Plastic Flamingo ink. I'm doing 2 card fronts that have this sentiment that reads, "There is no otter like you," and then the other one will say, "Love you like no otter." So both of them are super cute. And I just stamped them down twice to make that sentiment extra bold. While I have my Misty out, I'm going to go ahead and do the inside of the card. I'm using the same sentiment for the inside of all 4, and I'm stamping that in Lawn Fawn Juice Box ink. But I will be switching out the otter, so I will be doing 2 with this one and then 2 with the other version over on the right. I've trimmed out my pattern papers to 2.5 inches. That way I could use one 6x6 piece that would split into 4 ways since I'm making 4 cards. And I trimmed that with the Lawn Fawn stitch scallop borders, and then I'm just gluing that down to the card nice and flat. And then I will add some additional liquid glue to the back of my focal panel, and I'll press that down into place right over top. And then just trim off any excess of that pattern paper around the edge. So the great thing about this stamp set is that the matching dies come with an additional one that can trim out a little slit between their hands, so you can insert one of these little items here, the seashells or the fish or the hearts. And I wanted to make that groove just a little bit deeper so I could nestle that seashell down further. So I just did that quickly with my scissors, and then I can add that seashell into place. And it doesn't cover up his cheek or, too much of his whiskers. Then I'm just going to take a little bit of Post-it tape and put that right over top on the back to kind of hold that into place, and then I don't even have to bother with any liquid glue. As you can see, I have given each of the otters something different. So one of the brown otters holds a seashell, one holds the fish, and then the same for the gray ones. I'm going to be adding the opposite otter to the front of the card as I stamped on the inside of the card. So each card will feature both otters. And then I can just add a little dab of liquid glue where I want my hearts to go and just press them down into place right into that glue. I find that's the easiest way to adhere them. For the card with the gray otter, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, just make sure that the inside otter is different. And I also made sure to switch up the sentiments since I had 2 of each. Each of the gray otters will have a different sentiment, and each of the brown otters will also have a different sentiment. So I'll just finish up these last couple of hearts, and then I'll finish the other 2 cards off screen since they're pretty much the same. The only thing I did different on those was to put the hearts from smallest to largest going up, and I also gave them a little bit of a twist so that they were staggered slightly and not straight up and down. I'm adding a little bit of detail to their eyes with the black Jelly Roll Glaze pen. That makes them look extra shiny and bright. And that is going to complete our cards for today. I'm keeping them simple because these cards are going to the Cards from the Heart card drive, which benefits St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And if you'd like to learn more about that card drive, please see the first video in this series, or you can go to my blog post, which I'll have linked in the description bar below. I do hope you'll consider participating because it is such a worthy cause. Here's 2 extra videos from the previous 2 years of Valentine card series, so hopefully that will give you more inspiration if you're looking for it. As always, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already, and hit that notification bell if you want to make sure that my videos always end up in your feed. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.